All right, welcome back. So now let's get into our search form. But before we do, I want to change something a little bit. I would really prefer to keep this div main section within my index.php. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to remove the footer. That will be after the main section. And actually, let's take just a moment to clean this up. Give me just a moment. Okay, there we go, and just close that out. So now we need to return to index.php and add it right here. Not everyone does that, but it makes me more comfortable just to have each section. So actually, no, we don't want to add main there. We want to add it right here. Yeah, like so. All right, so I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to add to our search.php page. It should be blank for you. Paste all of that in. And this is going to be the page that when somebody searches for something, this page will be displayed to them. And we can do whatever we want. Well, the first thing I know is I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this more previous. We don't need those. Actually, what am I thinking? Of course we need those. What we don't need is the post item. So what I will do here is just get rid of this thing entirely. All right, and we'll say, let's create an unordered list. Well, first within our primary, let's type, we're going to keep this very simple. Search results, and we'll create an unordered list and paste in our have posts like so. And we're going to, if they have posts, then we'll echo out a list item and an anchor tag. And the value is going to be the title, the name of the posting that was returned. And the anchor tag, of course, is going to lead to the permalink again. All right. At the end of that, we need to end our if statement and end our unordered list. Let's see what else. I'm going to wrap this in a new div because we're going to have different sections. Based on the way we style it, we have these post items, but I'm going to add a different div for the pages. So I'll explain this a little bit more in a bit. But for now, let's just do div ID, and we'll call it something like page content. And we'll discuss that a little bit more in future lessons. All right, and let's just clean this up just a bit. Okay, so in page content, we don't need any of this right here. I'm not even going to bother with that. Actually, let's get rid of, actually, never mind, we do need this actually. Like so. Give me just a moment to get myself cleaned up. And what we'll do after the end while thing, we'll do else list item, not sure what you want, and then do the end statement. Yeah, I think that's right. So get rid of that, like so. So we have our get sidebar, we have the end of our main, and we have our get footer. Let's test this out. So I'm going to do a search for, I'm going to type really anything. Let's type lorem, because we know that's in each posting. Click search. Unexpected syntax error, unexpected colon on line 12. Let's figure that out. PHP else. Yeah. Should be colon. Let's refresh that page. Okay, and so now we have our search results. So that is why I wrapped it within a div with an ID of page content. That way we can have some different formatting for this section. And now these have links because we used the permalink. Now I want you to take note how this more section is showing up. And it's because within our control panel, we set it to display only 2 posts at a time. Now, obviously, you don't want that. We would change that. So I think the next step is we need to go in and clear up our CSS. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. It still looks okay, but we need to fix a lot of these features. So let's work on that right now. Now, this isn't going to be pretty because I'm going to have to be comparing this against my WordPress style sheet. So this section can get a little sloppy, but please just bear with me. I'm doing my best. This is very hard to teach, obviously, because it's not a step-by-step thing. You keep going back and forth. And I did forget, WordPress kind of has, it's not WordPress's fault, but this web developer toolbar, it doesn't deal with image paths very well. That's why if I open it up, some things disappear. So what you might want to do is do this manually. The first thing I want to take care of is this search area. So if we open up Firebug and we inspect this section right here, it's within a div with an ID of search, and we have our image and then our form. And that form was included, if you remember. And then we have an anchor tag. So let's go ahead and return to Coda and see if we can fix that. So let's open up Style. And let's find search right here. So we know it's not a list item anymore, so we can get rid of that. And let's get rid of that. And we know there's not one right here. Let's see if there's any more. Let's save that and see what changes that immediately does for us. Okay, not too much, but that's okay. So we will begin at the top. We're going to begin with the search box. So just to get an idea of what we're working with, I'm going to set the background to red. There we go. So it's taken up this whole area. So we want to float it and position it right back where it used to be. So I'm going to set a height of 66 pixels. And a position to absolute because we want to absolutely position it within our header div. And what we'll do is right is 0. Width, let's move that up right up here. Width is going to be 270 pixels. And that's just kind of fooling around with those values until I found something that works. Let's save that. And you're going to see, if I zoom all the way out, it's all the way against the edge of our window when we really want it to be against the edge of our header. And the reason for that is because we set position to absolute. So it's going to be positioned absolutely in relation to its nearest relatively positioned div. Say that 3 times. So what we want to do is go back to header and let's see, let's add something right here. Header, and let's do position relative. And now we've set a new positioning context. So if I zoom out now, you see it's up against the edge there. So let me come back to our search area. And if you'll remember, I mentioned that I didn't want to include the search icon as an image. I wanted it to be a background. So I'm going to add that in right now. Background is URL, and it's going to be img search icon.png, but I don't want it to repeat at all. So we've added that in. We can go back into header and remove that now. Let's go ahead and hide the file browser. And where is it? Right here. Get that whole thing, get rid of it. Come back, refresh the page, and now there's our icon, but it's as a background image. I can't select it. I'm going to go back to style.css and we're going to continue on. I want to play with the search icon, so what we need to do to access that is right here, search img, and let's position that. Let's play around with this for a minute. Position absolute right 0 top 0. Refresh the page. Yeah. So basically what I did there is this targets the RSS icon. All right, and we just positioned it absolutely all the way to the right, and we'll fix that a little bit more in a bit. So I now want to style the input field. And if you remember, we can probably keep it as an, actually no, we can't. I want to style specifically that input. And we gave it an ID of S. Remember, name equals S, ID equals S. So I'm going to get rid of this for now. And instead, I'm going to replace it with just a static width of 130 pixels. Okay? Nothing's going to change too much, but that value needs to be there. So let's position this a little bit better. I'm going to go back to my search div, and under right, I'm going to type top 5 pixels. Refresh it, and now I positioned it right there at the top, although we can actually get a little bit better than that. Let's change top to 0 maybe. We'll come back to that. I'm going to assume that my 5 pixel note was correct. And yeah, I bet it was. What we need to do is, for now, I'm going to get rid of that background red, and I'm also going to get rid of these margins. Because we floated it and positioned it absolutely, we no longer need any of those margins. Refresh. Yeah, there we go. And now we have that nice positioning. So we need to push this over a little bit to show our search icon. Once again, because with our image, we've positioned it absolutely, we no longer need these margins. Okay, and now that one, if you notice, it's right up against the right edge, and that's reinforcing the border like we would want. So let's add a bit of margin on this text box to push it to the right and show that search icon. So I'm going to do margin 44 pixels and refresh that. Yeah, now it's pushed that over, and that should be pretty much good enough for now. So the next step I want to do is take care of these navigation icons. So the way we can do that is if you look down, let's open up, once again, Firebug, handy dandy Firebug. We can't use those IDs that we assigned when we did the HTML. Remember, we assigned li with an ID of about and li with an ID of contact. But now it's been replaced here. And here we have a class of page item 2 for about and page item 9 for contact. So let's replace those. So let's find about, and we're going to change that to li with a class of page-item-2. And the next one is page-item-9. Now, normally I would comment this to remind myself this is the about section, but I can just look into the background and see that. So let's come back. Yippee, now our icons are showing back up. So we've gotten our navigation section almost back to normal. One thing I do want to do is shift up my logo. So where can we do that? Header, H1, background. Let's try something like position, relative. I wonder if we can get away with this. Top -6 pixels, just to kind of hide that very top edge. Yeah, that works. I wonder if we could, let's bring that down just a little bit. Yeah, I think that's fine for now. We can fix that. It looks like the name of the text is a little bit lower than it should be. Yeah, look at that. Let's do. Sorry, I'm holding you up. Let's get this fixed. Yeah, I think that's better. So maybe bring it down just a little bit to 12, and now we just get. It looks a little bit more like it's coming down. And if you ever refresh your page with CSS and it's not showing up, sometimes you just need to hit it a few times for the cache to be deleted. So let's continue on. We're doing a good job. Let's go down to, let's see, header. Where's our slogan? We need to work on our slogan a little bit, don't we? Actually, not too much. That looks pretty good. Search. And you know, this is how it is. You just kind of got to work your way through it. Font size 2 I am going to change this slightly from 28 on top to 0 on the right to 51 on the bottom and 0 on the left. We're going to float it. We set the background, the width, height, text indent, border, and padding. So you see that's basically just adding a little more padding around it. So now we move into our main content. So the next step we really need to work on is our post item, and that's this section right here. We need to clean this up. So right here, background, I mentioned a while ago when we first got started, we have this solid color here. I think it might be nice just to have a very, very subtle gradient. And I'm going to create that in Photoshop in a bit, but let's go ahead and just assume we've done it. So we'll say background, and I'm going to set it to FA URL, and it's going to link to, we'll call it postbg.jpg. And all that's going to be is just a very, very subtle gradient. And we will want to repeat that on the x-axis. All right. The next thing I want to do is we have a border solid white, but I'm going to change the color of the border on the right and the border on the bottom. And I'm going to change it to solid DF. And all that's going to do is add a little bit of depth. By setting white here and a little darker, it almost looks like it's coming out a little bit. It adds just a slight three-dimensional aspect to it. So we have margin bottom of 28 pixels. I'm going to set overflow to hidden. That looks good. Padding right. I'm going to add some more padding. So padding left. Let's do 30 pixels, and let's also do padding bottom. We could actually do this in one style when we clean up. Padding pixel 20. If I refresh the page, I'm adding just a little more padding, but I'm going to remove the padding from the image. So we have 30 pixels of padding on the div, so we can remove the 30 from the image. That's just a little reorganization. Come on, there we go. What else? I want to add a slight border to the very top right of the post items, and then I'm going to add a slight border radius to the top left of each of our widgets. So Moz border radius top right, only to the top right section of 5 pixels, and we want to make that for the WebKit browsers as well. So we'll do WebKit border top right radius. All right, and then the final thing I'm going to do is set a position to relative, just to be safe, and I believe it will fix a couple issues in some other browsers. All right, so I don't know if you can see this, but if I zoom in, now the post item has a slight roundedness. Okay, let's continue on. I would, let's add a slight border around this image. So let's do right here, and we're going to type border 1 pix solid A88888. Refresh the page, and we're getting that. That's right. We went over this before. So here's what we'll do. We're going to change padding to margin, and that's not going to fix it yet, but what we will do is add a little bit of padding around it so we can see this border. Let's try padding 4 pixels. And this is going to give us a nice kind of wrapping look. You see that? So it's almost kind of giving it a frame, and I think that looks rather nice. So let's now move on to styling our H2 tag. We'll be changing this dramatically. So within the H2, I'm going to get rid of, what's the best way to do this? I want to style all items. So let's change that from post item to primary H2. That will affect more than just the heading tags within the post item div. And I'm going to give it a letter spacing of 1 pixel. And what else? Font weight. Let's get rid of, I don't want it to be bold, so normal. Padding right. I'll explain this in a little bit. It's just to make sure it doesn't go too far against the edge. Line height of 32 pixels. And what else? Margin bottom, 0.2 ems. Refresh the page. And most of that we will see the effects of later, okay? So we next need to, let's add that 30 pixels of padding on the top back to the post item H2. The reason I'm doing it is because I didn't want that to be on all H2 tags, only on the post items. Padding top, 30 pixels, and I'm going to zero out the margin bottom. Okay, there we go. So we now need to, because this is now an anchor tag, let's go in and add a new value, post item H2, post item H2A. And we'll set the font size to 27 pixels. There we go. Much more to my liking. So let's come on back, and do we need to do anything to the paragraph? Yeah, we do. First, we're going to start by give it a margin bottom of 1.2 ems and a margin left. And this is to make sure that if this text is longer, let's see if we can force it. No, can't. If this text is longer than the image, then all of the text is going to come all the way underneath the image, and we don't want that. We want to maintain the margins here. So let's add that in. Margin bottom, and also margin left, and that comes out to 230 pixels after you measure it. And font size, I'm also going to bring the font size down just a little bit. I think it's a little large in its current state. There we go, just a little bit smaller, but a lot more neat. Now we need to think ahead right here. What happens when we click on a posting? Because we applied that left margin, it's been applied to everything. So remember, it's using the same template. So what we need to think about ahead of time is applying different formatting for the single page as opposed to the roundup. So what we will do is I'm going to think ahead, and I'm going to create a class that we're going to add to the body. And I'm going to show you how to use PHP to find out if we are on a page, or if we're on a single page, or if we're on the home section. But let's just assume that we apply a class of single to the body. Then we can target post item P, and we can reset that margin left back to 0. Now we haven't set this up, but just rest assured that we will set that up, and that will reduce the margin so it's not all the way over to the right. All right. Let's now, you can see here, we obviously need to clean up this meta section. So let's come on back, and we're going to have a background. That's correct. The color is white. Font size should be 11. Font style is normal. Padding, this is all pretty good. Margin left, 250. Margin bottom, I'm going to change that to 1.6 ems. And that's because I want there to be some separation between the heading and the text. So I just added a little bit more spacing. Width, we're going to increase this to 170, but also set a minimum width of 170 as well. The next step is a height of 15 pixels, and a line height of 15 pixels as well, and that will essentially vertically center the text. And then finally, let's take care of some borders. Once again, just to add more depth. It's the little things that make it stand out. So border top, 1 pixel solid, 750D0D. And we're going to do the same for the left one. Now these colors are somewhat arbitrary. It's just going and finding a darker shade. So border left, and then finally border right, 1 pixel solid. This is BC3D3. Whoops. BC3D3C. D3D, yeah. And we'll change that to the bottom. So that's top and left are brighter shades of red, and right and bottom are darker shades of red. Once again, zoom all the way in. Now you can see it. Darker shades of red and then lighter shades of red. Just add a little more depth. And I think that looks better, but we need to make sure this lines up here. Lines are very important. So we'll fix that by reducing the margin from 250 down to 230, which is what it should be. There we go. Looks much better. So let's go back to the home page. Yeah, we're getting there. It's already starting to look much better. So what I'm going to do right now is, real quick, I'm going to pause and create that subtle gradient. It's nothing you really need to see. It's just going to be a 5 pixel wide by 200, and it's just going to fade from barely off white to white. So I'll be right. All right, and I've uploaded that. You probably can't tell the difference, though maybe if you rewind and fast forward, you can see it's just very subtle. Subtlety is very important. So let's go back and finish up this style sheet, the boring stuff. We need to take care of the more link right down here at the bottom. So we need to find out, because WordPress dynamically generated that, we need to figure out how we can latch on. So I'm going to, if I can grab it, let's see. Okay, div with an ID of more link. Actually, we created that, more prev. So let's come back. I'm sorry, that's not what I'm even referring to. I am referring to this section right here, read more. Sorry about that. And you can see WordPress added a class of more-link. So that's how we can latch onto it. So let's find a good place, maybe right here. More link. And we can latch A with the class of more-link. And I'm going to say background, E1, 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 padding, let's give it 6 pixels all around, color, 69, border, 1 pixel solid, A4, 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 and once again, I'm just measuring from the PSD again. Font size is 0.9 ems, height of 15 pixels, and a line height of 15 pixels. Let's give it a width of 70 pixels, and a minimum width of 70 pixels just in case. And finally, let's align the text at the center. Pretty simple stuff. Let's see what that does. There we go. Very nice. So we do, after all, need to go and take care of this section at the bottom. And I believe it was called more prev A. So how can we target that? So we have this section right here, next previous button. So let's do more prev A. We're just changing the ID. Yeah, and there we go. And now we have our nice background. Much better. The only other thing I want to change is, let's make sure the line height is 12 pixels as well. That might make it vertically center. Yeah, there you go. And now it's perfectly vertically centered. And we are getting there. Definitely getting there. So let's continue on. Let's get rid of this sidebar. And now with our widget, we have a background. I also want to add that little gradient as well. So let's do that again. FA, 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 which is the color of the gradient image at the very bottom. That way we can create the illusion of it repeating. And I give it a name of postbg.jpg, repeatx. This is where we're going to be doing a lot of work, not necessarily WordPress related, but a lot of work to improve our design. All right, so you can't see, but it's now there. Let's also add the rounded edge. So after it, the widget will say Moz border radius top left, and that's going to be 5 pixels. Okay, border radius, what is it? Border top left radius, I think 55 pixels. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to change the colors just a little bit. So let's do, instead of all white, let's do border right, 1 pixel solid, DF, 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 and border bottom the same. And I kind of did this with the post item. We could probably reuse some of that. Refresh. Yeah, and now it's just a little bit darker to create that edge. So here's where we began branching off, and I decided if we come back, I wanted to make this much more spacious and get rid of that red. So we're going to come back, and the widget H2, instead of the red, let's change it to 5B, 5B, 5B. Okay, get rid of that color. And let's set the margin. We have 4% white, that's good. The color is white. The font size is 12 pixels. We have some padding all around that, all looks good. Let's add some borders around this as well. I know it's boring, but I think it really does help. So border, 1 pixel solid white, border right, and this is just going to be a little bit darker than that background. All right, there we go. So let's move on down. Widget ULLI. Well, we know we don't have this unordered list with an ID of popular posts now that we have a dynamic site. So let's get rid of that. And actually, while we're at it, I thought we already did this. Let's get rid of that one too. Okay. And we have widget ULLI. We have padding 3 pixels on the top and 0 on the bottom. I'm sorry, I'm speaking gibberish. 3 pixels on the top, 0 on the right, and 3 pixels on the bottom. I don't think that should change anything. Nope. So let's come on back, and what else? I want to set a line height of 22 pixels. And then we have a border bottom, and I'm going to change this slightly. Border bottom is going to be solid white. And the border top instead is going to be kind of a grayish, light grayish color. EC. Okay, now it's a much more subtle border. Hopefully you can see that. We still need to adjust the margins here, and we'll do that shortly. Padding, let's change that to 8%. We're going to double it. Okay, you know what? I think we can make that better. I'm going to leave that at 4 for now, and we'll come back. Actually, you know what? I think the problem is, coming back to that, it should be 8% all around. Try that. Yeah, and now we have lots of spacing, and I think it looks better. We can fix the tags if we need to. So let's come on down right here, and we're going to do widget A, and I'm going to make sure that the font size for any anchor tags in these widgets is 12 pixels. All right, let's see if we need anything else. Yeah, I think that's good for now. So we will need to add a popular post section. As I mentioned, we would need to add a Flickr section. Hopefully we can get to that. And we also need to work on this number of comments. So I think the number of comments is what I want to do next. So let's come back to our style sheet, and let's find a good place for this. Let's do it right under the more link. So if we return to our index.php file, you'll remember we gave a div with a class of num comments. So that's what we can use to latch on right here. So we can do div with a class of num comments. We first need to add the background that has that little talk speech bubble. So background, URL, ing, and we gave it a name of num comments.png when we sliced it up. We don't want it to repeat. Next, let's give it a width and height. So a height of 38 pixels and a width of 43 pixels, a line height of 38 pixels, and a position to absolute. So if we save that and we come back to our file, we set it to position. So now let's fix this. Let's set the right all the way to about 15 pixels from the right edge, and let's position it at the very top, 13 pixels. And then finally, let's align the text to the center. Let's see if that did it. All right, there's our image, but Let's see if I have that num comments. Oh, that's weird. It didn't show up. Maybe we didn't do that one together. All right, I'm going to pause and grab that. Be right back. Okay, so I just added that image. If I click on it, that's pretty much what we get. I'm sorry, I thought we did that when we sliced up. So if we refresh the page, now it's displaying perfectly. And if we click on it, it will take us to our comments, even though we haven't created that section yet. We need to take care of that. Let's go back to style.css. What else do we need to do? I suppose now we should work on our actual posting. So you can see here, we click on it, and we don't have anything there really to note, but we need to style it differently. So as you would guess, there's a new page template that we can work with, and it's called single for single post. So add a new file, single.php, and we're going to go into index. We're going to copy that and paste it into single, and now we can adjust it. So let's get cleaning up. First, I know we don't need to display the number of comments on this anymore since we're on that page, so we can get rid of that. And we have end while, else, more previous links we don't need, so we can get rid of that. And I think that might be okay. Yeah. So let's save that and come back, refresh the page, and now we've gotten rid of that on the single. We don't need it anymore. But how can we fix it so that we don't have this margin? And remember earlier I talked about assigning a class to the body. So you might think, okay, well that's easy. Let's just go to that page and find and change the class of the body. But the body is within our template for the header. So whatever you change the body on the header is going to change each section. So we need to use PHP to find out what page is the user currently viewing.